Alright, what's bubbling this E40 Fonzarelli TK? Hey, Charlie Hustle Easy, I thought you thought of a jig. Modulating and sauteing with B.Woods.
Damn, is that right?
Industry stories, what's going on? B.Woods hanging out with you, and this is the podcast where we talk about everything in the entertainment business and, you know, whatever it takes to make it pop off. And so my name is B.Woods, holding it down. How you doing? And of course, one of the biggest things that I think that, you know, most people, you know, we kind of touch on is the idea of reinventing yourself, right? What I noticed is, you know, when I came up in the entertainment business, doing radio, most of the personalities were just attached to this one thing, which is doing radio. Especially out here in LA, it can be very seductive because one, everybody knows you. I mean, if you're in New York or LA, it's to be dead ass, like, it's fun to do anything locally in a big city, right? So for instance, if you were a basketball player and you went to UCLA and then you got to play for the Lakers, like, it's crazy, right? Like, it's insane because all the people that you know, not only do they obviously know you like social media, different things like that, but I mean, they see you come up, and so the love is just it's just crazy. And so that's the same thing with radio. When I was coming up, it's like when people see you, when you ain't really, you're not doing what they see you in your current state doing, and everybody goes to school with you, and then they see you, and then you kind of come up, and then you get to, you know, kind of blast off locally, and people kind of see your grind and see your hustle. Like, it's a great feeling. You know, obviously, you know, being here in LA, we got a lot of, you know, people that, you know, just, you know, took off, from the Snoops and the Ty Dolla Signs and the Mustards and the, you know, and James Harden and Russell Westbrook. So we have a lot of talent out here, and obviously personalities. You got like Big Boy and, you know, people out here that, you know, really hold down the coast. And then there's all these other pieces too. And so it's very, very seductive in terms of just like, once you get one of those positions, even if you're doing like local television, you know, like you can get seduced into just being who and what you are. I know for me, even personally, you know, doing radio, when I was doing radio out here in Los Angeles, it was, you know, I saw a lot of my coworkers, and, you know, this is what they 100% just focused on. And I always remembered, when I first started in radio, I would always just kind of look at what was happening. And one of the people there at the radio station that was there was Sway. Sway's actually on Sirius XM, I believe, Sirius XM radio, and he's doing his thing, and he used to be at the Beat, and when we was at the Beat, I was, you know, like early 20s, this was my first experience at the radio station, and everybody would just, you know, all the people in the promotions department, we loved Sway, but Sway would always be trying to give us game about everything. And when I say game, just advice about everything in the world. So he almost became like Uncle Sway in the radio station. So we go, oh shit, here comes Sway. He about to preach to us or something. And so one day, you know, Sway, he was doing the Wake Up Show, which is a hip hop show. You know, he's a pioneer of the game, and he was also doing like, you know, several other things, and you know, a local and the shift at the Beat. Every so often he'd fill in for people at this radio station. So one day, you know, this is like my first few years at the station, like early stages of my career. And I'm in the studio, and I was like, all right, let me chop it up, you know what I'm saying, with Sway, you know what I mean, because he's in there, and, you know, every so often you just want to just kick it. So he's in the studio, he's on the air, and he tells me, B, what you got going on? What you got going on after this? You know, and I had no idea what he was talking about. He was like, I mean, after this, like, you know, at the time, this was like the hottest radio station in LA. And I was just like, huh? It's like, what you know what I'm saying? Like, I got, you always, you want this, you don't never want to just sit on this radio stuff. You always want to make it like your springboard. Use this as a springboard to get other things popping. And I was just like, what? I mean, bruh, like, like I'm looking at it from the perspective of, at the time, like everything was coming through the station. You're talking about Pac and, Ice Cube was here and Snoop and, like this was like the mecca, the beat at the time was just the mecca of hip hop. So for me to think of anything outside of that was, for me, insane. And for Sway to even be telling me this was just like insane. And as I recall, he was just like, yo, I always got my hand in a few things and blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I was like, they let Sway go. I think they let Sway go. And I was like, damn, what happened to Sway? He was doing his thing out here. And sure enough, a month later, a few weeks later, he was on MTV, like, what's up, world, Sway? Killing the game all over. And then it just, like, that's what resonated with me. I was just like, yo, that's what he was talking about. He had his second act ready to go. He reinvented himself. He was always putting the pieces and navigating. He didn't sit on just the fact that he had this, top, his own independent, wake up show. And even what he was doing at the beat, he was still out here grinding, and to the point to where he got, his TV thing, popping to the next level to where now, he's in millions of, he's not dependent on one station. I mean, this brother's syndicated everywhere, and one of the top respected pioneers of the game. So it was just always, for me, was just what I took from that was just the fact that, he never sat on that one thing, and he was willing to reinvent himself, or he was willing to kind of, know the space to where, okay, I can't really depend on this one thing, even though it's popping right now. Same thing with Lala. I know you guys probably know, or Lala Anthony at on Power. She just, no spoiler, but she's no longer on Power because whoop-de-wop and whoop-de-wop happened. Like I said, this is a podcast. You could be listening to it, so me talking about Power could be like me doing a spoiler for fucking I Love Lucy. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. So, but La, yeah, she started, doing radio in Atlanta. Then she came out here to LA, and La was, for me, she was so dope in the sense of just like, I always like, before I actually got on the air, she would just like kind of test me about like different things like intros and outros. So she was so meticulous about it, and about how to do radio correctly, and she stayed on top, even though I didn't have an air shift or, she just made it a point to make sure that I was always studying and I was always learning. And sure enough, with the politics of radio and different things like that, La was out here hustling. She had at a certain point, she was doing like a local, show on TV with another guy, and she was making moves, and people were hating on her making her moves. And then, same thing, she dipped, and she made the move to MTV. I mean, there's a lot of things that went into it, and she cut off a lot of ties from folks that she was fucking with, and she made it happen, and she spoke it, and she was diligent about not just reinventing herself, but just making the next step, even though what she had was popping. And I remember when La left, and when she first started doing, the TV stuff at MTV, I remember our general manager at the time was like, they were out here calling her traitor and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, she's out here winning. She's out here doing her thing. Y'all should be congratulating her, because she's doing it way bigger than this little, obviously LA is a huge market, but she's doing it way bigger than this, to to the point to where she polyed it to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to where now, she's a household name, and she's out here really, really making it happen, and it's just like, the idea of just, not just sitting on, even when something is popping, whatever it may be, it's not just to like sit in it, and just and make it seem as if, okay, this is going to stay the same forever, because shit changes, and shit changes. So you always want to be thinking about, okay, what's the next move? How can I grow from this? How can I build? And especially when, a lot of folks, they probably don't work in a corporate entity within entertainment, but it's just more of just like your personal branding, maybe on like IG or whatever, you got 5 million followers, and all of a sudden your account gets erased, and you're fucked. You know what I mean? So it's just about like, how do I poly this into different streams and different things like that, and not just being satisfied by just doing that one thing. And those two people, for me, really changed my perspective on what entertainment looked like, and how to navigate, and how to move, La and of course Sway. Those two people were just, amazing, and they're still doing their thing. Even Steve Harvey, because Steve Harvey, he was actually at the radio station too. He was doing his comedy thing, and he would always come in, and there was a couple humbling experiences for Steve too, because I know at a certain point, he got into it with one of the GMs at the radio station, I think for Radio 1. I think maybe Kathy Hughes, and I know they let him go at a certain point, but he had a couple people in his team to really reinvent himself and start doing the syndicated radio in a way to where he navigated it into, the television show from, he was doing something out here called the Hoodie Awards, and, he polyed it to the NBC show, and then to the, obviously the movies with Think Like a Man, and, just kind of seeing, obviously Steve has always been big, but, just having that opportunity to see that, okay, cool, like, I know I'm a dope comedian and I'm doing my thing, and even though I got this radio show, I can tighten this up and humble myself, and and get this syndicated show to the NBC show, and the NBC show to now he's a household name. And so it's just about really seeing, these people really just take it to the next level. Even like last one, but even I used to do a show with Master P, and Master P, every week we did a show on this station out here in LA called 93.5 K-Day, and P, and we did this show called Hollywood Radio. Shout out to my guy TY, and it would be me, TY, and Master P, and we would just play independent West Coast music out here, like everybody from like J Rock, Spider Loc, like all these cats out here on the West Coast that wouldn't really get an opportunity to do like regular, like they wouldn't, no program director would add a lot of these folks. These are folks that I would just see, on the block, and they say, yo, I do music, and I play their joints on the radio, and P would let me. And it was just a beautiful situation, because it was a lot of love, and we got a lot of people, just maybe they didn't blow up, but it gave them an opportunity to know that, okay, let me pursuing my shit is possible, and I can make some ground in it. But P would always come in, and even though we were doing the show, and he's always, obviously no limit is no limit, but even then, he would just come in every week with a new something, what I mean? He'd be like, yo, this is the Master P blender, one week. Next week, this is the new Master P speakers. Next week, this is the Master P air conditioner. I'm like, God damn, every week you got a new invention, bro. He just stays just moving and thinking, what I mean? Like, he got a little think tank going, and it's no surprise that this brother just is out here, super just winning, and is always win, because he's never getting comfortable. He can be like, okay, I can sit on this, and this is popping, and blah, 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 blah. But, he's always thinking, reinventing himself, and knowing that, the next move is always the best move. So that's just, industry stories. And, even when you out here winning, there's always room to grow. So B.Woods, holla back, industry stories. Let's do it.